What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we got Christian from My Kid Brother. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, no problem. Great to happy to talk.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. A lot has been going on. First and foremost, you released your self-titled EP. Being that this is a self-titled EP, could this serve as maybe a clear representation on the direction that My Kid Brother is going into, or is this just sort of like a one-off sort of thing, and you're going to do something more different in the future?
So I would say it's tough to tell. I think that we were just really happy and excited to get this first EP out with Fearless Records. And I think there's a lot of decision making that we kind of have to consider, and a lot of elements that we have to consider moving forward. And kind of just going to look at how this does and how everything moves forward, considering quarantine, things like that, considering touring. And I think that I would absolutely love to make a full length album coming up soon, but I think it just kind of is it really depends on what everything looks like. It depends on how well this EP does, and we're just excited to keep recording. And so whether it's an EP or whether it's an album, we're just happy to be in the studio and happy to continue to make music with a really cool label.
Yeah, Fearless is awesome, and they have a great roster, and they really seem to be very supportive over their artists. I think Fearless is really a great label to help push a lot of up-and-coming bands, as also, representing, OGs and bands such as Pretty Reckless and August Burns Red and All That Remains and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. They've been awesome. The other bands that we've gotten to meet out in LA have been super cool. Everybody's super encouraging and supportive, and you never really know when you before you sign with somebody. You hear all these don't trust anybody type things, but honestly, they have been so encouraging, so welcoming, and so helpful, and they're just really good, kind people.
Yeah, and again, killer roster as well. They had a lot of great albums come out this year.
Oh yeah.
Yep, and that actually led me into my next question, because you played at the Fearless Stay at Home Festival too, right?
So we played. Do you mean the one that was out in LA?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we went out there, and it was just kind of people from Fearless. They had a pop up, which was really cool. I forget which. I'm not super familiar with LA, but I forget which neighborhood it was in. But yeah, we played just kind of a stripped back set. Just got set up and got to meet some other bands, some other people there, and it was a cool 3-day event.
Yeah, that's all people needed in their own house was a porta potty, and then it would have felt like an actual festival.
No joke.
Yeah. Now, with this EP, was there kind of a preconceived idea? Because going from Daydream to Good News to, Ain't That Cool or Pastels, I feel like every song worked very well together, and they also sort of played by their own rules. Was there kind of an idea of how you wanted this EP to sound, or was there kind of a lot of improvising involved?
So I think that we initially thought that grouping of songs was going to kind of be cohesive enough but representative enough of all the different elements and sounds, and so we went into it with a couple options and a couple ideas, because we've got a bunch of songs that we've been writing through since we've been a band. We've got a bunch of songs that we've been writing now, and we were kind of how do we group these together? And so a lot of thought went into it, a lot of work with the producers, and then ultimately we kind of were just these just sound, they flow the best together, and we were really happy with the end product, how they kind of one goes into the other.
Yeah, I feel for a listener to really comprehend this EP, this is one of those albums where you want to start off with Daydream and you want to end with Native Tongue. I feel that there's such a good narrative behind it. I wouldn't consider this necessarily shuffle friendly, right? That's how I like to say it.
Right, yeah, no, for sure. We that definitely was pretty intentional with how the songs kind of go into each other. But at the end of the day, in the world of Spotify, in the world of playlists, if people just catch one of them, we wanted it to be able to stand on its own and kind of hold its own in a playlist of other songs as well. So we were really happy with kind of how they eventually turned out, which was different than how they were written, but that's the beauty of working with producers.
Yeah, I've always said that if a producer is the 5th Beatle, the 6th Beatle, if you're in Slipknot, the 10th Beatle. So So for having a producer, it always has to help, bring in some new visions and really hone your craft in a certain way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you really kind of just, you pick the people that you think are going to help to kind of make that vision happen, and then also throw in like a lot of their own spice to it. It's a really fun process for sure.
Yeah, it seemed like also that this EP is very organic, because I was told that you actually hand painted the EP cover as well, right?
Yeah, so when we had we were doing a run of vinyls, and it was like, I think it's like 400 of them just to start, like as a test, and we were like, well, we could, if this is just the first push of them, why don't we just make these like really, different if this is the first run of vinyls and it's only 400 of them. So we it was the entire band. We went out in the backyard, and Dylan, the guitarist, he got a bunch of paints and spray paints, and every single one of them, we took the cover of every single one of them, and we like splatter painted them, we drew on them, we like spray painted them. So every single one of those vinyls is unique. So it's going to be pretty cool.
You should, man, what you should have done is, I mean, obviously this can't happen at the very moment given the times that we're in, but that would have been a really cool like exhibition where like you just exhibited all 400 of those vinyls. That sounds like something that would hang in the Museum of Modern Art.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like so we did film it, and we've got I think coming up soon, we've got the video of it kind of coming out. It's like a time lapse, because it took us honestly like 5 hours, because we really wanted to make sure that each one was individual, and then we had to dry them on the yard, and after we dried them, we had to take them all inside because it was about to rain. So we're like, damn, they haven't dried yet. So we had to take every single one of them inside and lay them out on just, the entire house was just covered in these things because they couldn't stack on top of each other. So there should be a video coming out of all that craziness soon.
If you mix house paint and spray paint and water, though, it does create a really interesting texture. I'm an artist myself, so maybe a little technical advice there. If you mix house paint, pour some water on it, and spray paint it, and let it dry, like on a surface that's not angled, it'll actually maintain the motion of paint moving in the water.
Really?
Yeah.
That is awesome. I had no idea. I'm going to keep a mental note of that, because we're always looking for like new cool stuff to do. You know what I mean? Especially like on an individual basis, with just kind of reaching out to like people, anybody that like fans, anybody new. So yeah, that's awesome. You said house paint, water, and spray paint. Yep.
You like lay a coat of house paint down covering the whole thing, then sprinkle a little bit of water on it, like a half of a bottle of Poland Spring or something like that, and then just gently spray paint over it, and then you can mix colors with it. Some combinations work better than others.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. And that's funny too, because like, is there maybe like a similar creative energy, or maybe like a similar creative mind frame to creating visual art as opposed with music as well, or was that almost kind of like a separate talent that you all just picked up all together?
Oh no, I think they're definitely like they're intertwined. Like so Dylan, our guitarist, is like a really fantastic graphic designer, and Piano, our keyboardist, she is a super talented filmmaker, and she before she was in the band, she had been going back and forth to New York City making films, and so I think it kind of just becomes like a piece of this one giant creative puzzle. So we really found like a cool, like, happy place of going, like, it doesn't just have to be music, it doesn't just have to be art, it can be a combination of all these things together, and that's kind of the entire product of what My Kid Brother is. Like, we have so many interests, like, why not combine them together and see what kind of comes out the other end,
Yeah, I've always loved seeing bands that are like that, where, obviously the music should be the main focal point. I mean, that's why you're a band, but like, it's really cool on how, like, when a band has a concept or like a story and they have many different creative aspects behind what they create. Like My Chemical Romance is very artistically driven. Converge is very artistically driven. And so it's really cool that you did you guys maybe develop some of the visions for these vinyls as you made the music?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We when we were out in LA, we were kind of finishing up the album, and it was I gotta remember where, I think we were like in Melrose or something like that. And Dylan had his computer, and he's just tossing around different ideas, like messing with stuff in Photoshop, and ultimately came up with the EP cover while we were just right there in the studio, and we were just like, oh man, that is 100% it. That is the album cover, and it just kind of just happened while we were in the studio. It was really cool.
And last question regarding like the visual aspects behind it, but like being that you made 400 of these vinyls and these 4 unique, is there any way that like, did you guys take photo records of it? So, you know, not everybody can get their hands on all the vinyls, but maybe if people are curious to see the different colors or different designs, maybe will there be like a photo album that people could see just to see all the different designs that came out of it?
So we definitely got some of them. Piano was like sure to like make sure like each batch. So we had them in batches. Each batch was covered. So it'd be like a batch of like, I think it was like 36 of them or something, however it like laid out. And so each batch was basically covered. And I think some of the really unique ones were definitely photographed. So we'll definitely have like pictures and an album, but I don't know about each one individually. I think we kind of missed the boat on that. I wish we had thought about that you could like flip through and see each one individually, but that would have been a great idea.
That'll be the biggest mystery of My Kid Brother.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, who knows? Maybe like in the future, like 10 years from now, those will be like collector's items. Like you're a real OG if you get your hands on that.
That would be very cool. That would be awesome. And it's exciting because like we've always kind of done stuff like that. Like I think when the band formed like 2-3 years ago, we had a bunch of USBs and we went to like FedEx and printed off a bunch of these little pocket sleeves and put the USBs in. And some of my friends hit me up the other day and they were like, check out what I found, just like chilling on my dresser. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. We only made like, 75 of them. It was like our first show. So yeah, well, maybe there'll be somebody hit me up in 10 years and be like, look what I found.
It's all of the My Kid Brother like discography, physical things will be like Indiana Jones treasures.
That would be very cool.
Yeah. Now, going into the songwriting process, is there ever a time where lyrics or like a subject matter that you want to sing about, can that help dictate the direction of the music, or does music always have to come first before any lyrical ideas come to mind?
No, that's a good question. I think kind of how I go about, like, I do most of the writing of the lyrics, and a lot of times, like, it'll just be one of those things where I have to, like, I'll be in my car, when you're just, like, daydreaming in your car, and I'll have to, like, pull over, or I'll stop at a red light and just kind of write down, like a series of lyrics or an idea, kind of just something that I want to talk about or something that I feel is, like, profound, and write it down, and then I'll go home and kind of make it legible, because a lot of times when you're writing in your car, you're like, wait, what was I trying to say there? None of that, this is word mash. So I'll go home, try to make it legible, and then the music normally will kind of follow after that. But every so often, you're just like messing around with the rest of the band, we're like practicing, and somebody will just start playing something. You're like, hey, that's actually really cool. Keep doing that. Yeah. So the lyrics will kind of get pushed into that.
It seems like inspiration strikes at the most inconvenient times, right?
Oh man, it literally, like, I'll wake up in the middle of the night, it'll be like 4 a.m. I'll just like be like, oh wait, I cannot forget exactly what I'm thinking right now, and I'll just start singing something onto my voice recorder, and just like in the middle, I'll be like, don't forget what I'm thinking of right now. It's a really cool melody. I'll be like sing it and say it, and sometimes I'll listen to it the next day. I'll be like, yeah, I was still asleep because that's not very good.
Mm-hmm. And like, because I interviewed one of my favorite vocalists last week, Burton from Fear Factory. And he said that like inspiration is like lightning. It's just gone as quick as it comes. So you got to find a way to capture that in a bottle. Oh yeah, and it's just awesome that technology at the point that it's at right now. I couldn't imagine if I like thought of something in my car and it was like 1974. I'm like, hey, is the studio open? You have to like drive across town, get to the studio, and not forget it. Yeah, I mean, I just hope that when you're daydreaming in the car, that you're not like driving in like the massive traffic. That sounds pretty dangerous. Yeah, no, where we live in, we're like 40 minutes outside DC. It's pretty rural, but I'll catch myself being like, I just completely missed my exit because I was thinking about something different. But pretty good driving record so far. Oh God, be safe, please. And like, do you like to leave the music open to interpretation, or being that you guys are so one with your art and you're involved so much in the creative process that maybe one goal for My Kid Brothers is sort of get the listener to see things from your point of view? That's an awesome question. I've thought about that before, and I'm kind of like, art is what we're saying or is what we're conveying direct enough for people to interpret it in the way that I would have wanted it to be, but
then again, there's kind of this like idea that like it's really cool when I'll have people come up and be like, "Is this what this lyric meant? Is this what this song meant?" And I'm like, "No, but I really love your interpretation of it." And there's something beautiful in that everybody sees art differently. Everybody sees things from their own perspective, and I think that's the beauty of art. So, like, yeah, I kind of like that people will interpret lyrics or interpret like art differently.
Yeah, but I'd imagine if a listener comes up to you and asks, like, what does good news mean, or what does ain't that cool, or smile losing my mind mean, like, you're not going to be like, oh, it's whatever you want it to be. I'd imagine that you'd want to explain it sometimes, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll be like, this is kind of the mindset of writing it. And I think a lot of the lyrics are pretty direct, like, especially in Daydream. That one's, it's a little spacey, but I think it's pretty direct, kind of what's going on. And I think most people will latch onto that. I think it's more or less just like a certain line or a certain stanza that they'll be like, is this what this meant, or was this a throw to this other song? Was this kind of like, were you going from this angle with it? So I think the overall message is pretty clear with most of them.
Mm-hmm. You ready for the most difficult question of the whole interview?
Sure.
How do you know when a song is done?
I don't think you ever do, because I'll listen back to songs and go, man, what would have happened if I did that, or what would have happened if this kind of, there was like a abrupt chord change here. I think you know when it's written all the way. That's so tough because like I think I'm ready to go record it once we do our own, like, we have our own like studio set up in our place, and we'll do like our own mixes and stuff before taking it to like producers or the label or anything. But I think once I'm listening to it in my car after that, and I'm just like, damn, I'm happy with that. That's when I know it's done. But I think there's always room to like change and alter and be creative with really anything, even the finished product.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like it's so cliche to the point where even I roll my eyes when some artists say it, but like, art is never finished, it's only abandoned. But I mean, in the end, it is true. Just because it's a cliche doesn't mean it's false.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's like, it's just such a hard question, because you're like, you could say that and it sounds kind of like I'm so spacey, I'm so out there, but honestly it's true, because you'll never, I don't think any musician will ever listen to a final product and go, there is nothing that I would ever change about that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no such thing. I mean, like, there's even, I've heard like Guns N' Roses interviews saying that they would change some stuff off of Appetite for Destruction. I'm sure that Angus wouldn't mind changing a riff here and there on Back in Black. I mean, there's always stuff that could be changed and altered.
Yeah, absolutely. And ultimately, those changes might not be for the best. Maybe the product that you have is like, objectively the best that there is. But you'll always think about it, I think.
Of course. And the final question I wanted to ask you is, you guys originated from Virginia, right? Like, that is your home base?
Yeah, Leesburg, Virginia. We all live, it's about 45 minutes outside D.C. It's a really small town, but it's a really warm, welcoming, super progressive, very hip town.
Oh, so is there kind of like an active music scene like in your hometown, or like is really like the goal for My Kid Brother to maybe play in other cities like DC, or maybe go up to like Baltimore or wherever and like maybe expand the name for My Kid Brother now?
Yeah, there's a very cool DIY scene, and there's some local venues that are really cool. Like, we play our local venue, Tally Ho, is probably like 800 people cap. But there's a lot of musicians, and I think the cool thing about Leesburg that's been happening the past couple of years is a lot of those musicians are kind of getting to meet each other. The community is growing. It's super encouraging. But yeah, like we'll play like up and down the East Coast, or at least when we were playing, and we'll kind of like shout out to Leesburg or shout out other bands, like local bands that we know, and try to like kind of keep that network of musicians growing and try to keep Leesburg growing for sure.
Yeah, and so is it fair to say that your hometown may be kind of like a go-to spot for music in the future?
I hope so. I think in the future, I hope that like we keep working, and I hope the other musicians in town keep working to kind of create that. But right now it's very DIY, but there is a lot of talent and a lot of like really, really solid songwriters around the area.
Awesome. It seems like you have everything that you need for a scene. I think DIY is often really good. I mean, our thoughts are with them because DIY anything is hurting right now. But like, I'd imagine that, like, having this DIY sort of thing. It seems like even with you guys, everything is DIY. You create the artwork, you create the music, you have all this thing. It seems like you come from the hometown of DIY.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like I think we really embraced that idea, and I think that we were just really like honest with ourselves and honest with the scene, and we were like, hey, let's see what happens, and let's just constantly create art and create music and just have a lot of fun with it.
And that's exactly the vibe I got from this EP. It was fun. It's not meant to be overanalyzed, overinterpreted. It's just all in all, it's a fun experience and with a great creative backstory as well.
Yeah, pretty much, man. I'm happy that you perceive it that way, because that's exactly how we want it to be perceived. Just fun and enjoyable and full of love and friendship and happiness.
Thank you. And we could definitely need that at the times that we're currently in.
Absolutely.
So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Obviously, thanks to a certain virus that I choose not to name. Yeah, don't give it any publicity. But obviously, when all this is over, is there a chance we'll be seeing you guys on the road? Is there a chance that maybe my kid brother could come to New York City one day?
Oh, absolutely. We're just dying to hit the road right now, and so once all this is over, for sure, we're going to be playing shows, we're going to be touring, we're going to be on the road, and I would absolutely love to be in New York City, come to New York City and play, so I would definitely count on it.
Yeah, count me first in line for that show.
Awesome.
But thank you so much, everybody. We are here with My Kid Brother. Be sure to check out the self-titled EP. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We will see you next time.